Hello there, and welcome. Tonight, we'll slip beneath the surface not into a fantasy, but into one of the most extraordinary biological realities on Earth. The octopus isn't just strange, it's stranger than strange, a creature with 3 hearts, blue blood, and an intelligence so foreign that some scientists believe it's the closest thing we have to an alien. This isn't science fiction, it's marine fact. We'll drift through over 100 unbelievable truths, from chromatophores that can paint emotions across their skin to arms that make decisions without asking the brain. The octopus doesn't just live in the ocean, it dreams there. And while you're settling in, before your eyes grow too heavy, I'd love it if you gently tapped subscribe or pressed the little hype button YouTube recently added. It's a small click, but it helps keep these experiments and explorations orbiting out into the algorithm. You can also leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the night. It's oddly fascinating to see where people are drifting off with us, scattered across the world like stars across the galaxy. Now take a deep breath. Let your day drift away, and let's travel together into the quiet corners of the universe. In the quiet dark of the ocean floor, an octopus moves without urgency. No bubbles trail behind it. No bones creak. It flows. 8 limbs, each soft and precise, ripple across rock and coral like smoke with a purpose. To watch an octopus is to witness something that doesn't seem to belong to Earth as we know it. A creature that thinks in ways we can't fully trace, making decisions in silence, responding to the world in ways that feel both alien and intentional. And the secret to this mystery lies not just in the head, but in the arms. If you were to map an octopus's nervous system, you'd find something remarkable. Not centralized like ours, not even close. 2/3 of its neurons are not in its brain, but in its limbs, distributed like a network, a constellation of intelligence radiating outward. Each arm can process information on its own. It can feel, taste, and even decide. If one arm finds food, it doesn't need to check with the brain to begin grabbing or tasting. It just knows, and it acts. Scientists have tested this in carefully lit labs, removing arms and watching them still respond to touch, still explore, still curl and reach, as if searching for something lost. These aren't simple reflexes. They're active responses, tiny fragments of mind scattered through muscle. The arms are not mere tools. They are partial minds, reaching out like quiet scouts, thinking through contact. Even when attached, the arms exhibit a strange kind of independence. If an octopus sees prey, the central brain may decide to pursue it. But how to approach, which arm to use, how to manipulate terrain, those choices can unfold within the limbs themselves. It's as though the brain delegates, offering goals, while the arms determine the choreography. This decentralization allows for fluidity. While one arm is prying open a clam, another can be tasting the sand, while a third is anchoring against a rock, each with its own thread of awareness, each moving with eerie precision, without pause or confusion. Inside each limb lies a dense weave of ganglia clusters of neurons forming miniature command centers. They sense texture, taste molecules, feel pressure, and transmit a constant flow of information. But they don't simply report back to the brain. They act, they calculate, and they respond directly to what's around them. This has led some researchers to propose that an octopus doesn't have one central self, but a collective one. A mind in parts. What does that mean? To be made of parts that think. Imagine if your hands could make decisions without you. Not just automatic reactions, but conscious problem solving. If your left hand could decide to reach for a glass while your right hand composed music. If your fingers could taste salt, sense vibrations, and decide to hold on just a moment longer. For an octopus, this is not imagination, it is life. This distributed intelligence may be part of why octopuses are such skilled escape artists. In aquariums, they've been known to unscrew lids, unlatch cages, and slip through cracks barely larger than a coin, not by rote training, but by exploration, feel, and sudden flashes of discovery. It's not always clear what part of them is in charge at any given moment, and maybe that's the point. Control is not centralized, it's shared. In the wild, this system serves them well. Octopuses are soft-bodied, vulnerable, and short-lived. They have no shell, no spines, no swarm to protect them. What they do have is awareness spread thin but wide, filling every corner of their being. While a predator approaches from one side, an arm on, the opposite end can be feeling out a crevice to hide in. The brain doesn't need to see it all. It trusts the limbs, and the limbs respond, not like servants, but like collaborators. One study placed food in a maze-like tube. The octopus could not see the treat, only its arm could explore the interior. And yet, with time, it found its way. It curled and uncurled, rotated suckers across surfaces, mapping the path not with eyes or thoughts, but through the skin itself. The arm became a sensor, a thinker, and a guide. It remembered shapes and avoided dead ends. When the food was reached, the rest of the body followed. This autonomy is enhanced by a second kind of intelligence, chemical sensing. Each sucker up to 2,000 on a mature octopus contains neurons that can taste what they touch. The texture of a shell, the flavor of a surface, even the subtle trace of a toxin left behind. The world is not just seen or felt, it is tasted at every point of contact. This creates a rich, multi-dimensional experience of the environment, a kind of 3D map made from chemistry and motion. The result is a creature that can respond before it knows why, that can explore without waiting for approval. The arms do not hesitate, they do not need orders. They reach, grasp, sample, retreat. Sometimes they move in harmony, sometimes in surprising dissonance. But always, they are acting agents of a mind without borders. And yet, for all their autonomy, the arms are not cut off from the whole. They can be overridden. The brain can seize control when needed, especially in moments of danger or complex manipulation. Like a conductor stepping in during a crescendo, guiding the orchestra just enough to shift direction. But most of the time, the music plays itself, coordinated, responsive, and beautifully unpredictable. This kind of embodiment, thinking through limbs, feeling with skin, deciding with muscle challenges how we define intelligence. It stretches the idea of a singular self. The octopus lives as a network, a community of decisions held loosely together by a soft central brain and a lifetime of curiosity. And perhaps this is part of why they feel so strange to us, not just because of their alien appearance or short lives, but because their minds are not shaped like ours. They are not trapped behind eyes and skull. They are dispersed, fluid, and collaborative. An organism made of questions, reaching out in all directions, searching with every limb, not to conquer, but to understand. In the deep sea, this way of being is not a luxury, it is survival. To live without armor is to live with awareness. To live with softness is to live with touch. And to live with 8 thinking limbs is to be a body in constant negotiation with the world. You don't watch an octopus move, you watch it think, not just from the head, but from the arms, silent, supple, and endlessly alive. In the dim shallows of a coral reef, where light dances like water made of fire, an octopus rests unnoticed. It isn't hiding behind a rock or tucking into a cave. It is the rock. Its skin ripples with the same color, the same texture, the same impossible detail as the reef beneath it. If a fish swims by, it sees nothing strange, just stone. But the moment it passes, the illusion melts. The stone lifts, stretches, and becomes an octopus again, gliding away as if nothing had happened. Camouflage, in nature, is not rare, but what the octopus can do borders on science fiction. Its skin doesn't just change color, it morphs. It mimics. It responds faster than thought. A pattern appears across its body in less than a blink, as if painted on by the world itself. And what's more astonishing is how it happens. Because in the octopus, the skin doesn't wait for the eyes. It sees for itself. At the heart of this ability are cells called chromatophores. Each one is like a tiny balloon, filled with pigment and surrounded by muscles. When the muscles contract, the balloon spreads out, revealing color. When they relax, the color disappears again. Each chromatophore is controlled by nerves, and these cells are packed by the millions across the octopus's skin. But they're not just dots of paint. They are dynamic pixels in a living display, able to expand, shrink, and layer over one another. Beneath them, deeper still, lie other layers of light-sensitive structures, iridophores and leucophores that reflect and scatter light like a natural mirror. Together, they create not just color, but shimmer, texture, motion. But something even stranger lies beneath all this. The skin contains light-sensitive proteins called opsins, the same kind that help our eyes detect brightness and shadow. Yet here, they're not located in the eyes at all. They're distributed across the skin, which means the octopus doesn't need to see in the usual way to know what kind of light is falling on its body. Its skin feels light, the way we feel, warmth or cold. It registers the environment not just as sensation, but as presence, a kind of primitive vision that bypasses the eyes entirely. Researchers have placed octopuses in environments where their eyes are covered or turned away. Still, their skin reacts. Shadows pass overhead, and their camouflage shifts in response. It's not sight as we know it, but it is perception, a ghost of light awareness, enough to know whether they stand out or blend in, enough to disappear. This ability is especially important in their world, where danger comes from every angle. The sea is filled with eyes, some above, some below, some faster than sound. In this ever-shifting threatscape, waiting for the brain to issue instructions can be too slow. So the skin reacts directly, informed by ambient light and local texture. When the octopus stretches across a ridged coral, it doesn't need to think about the pattern it shows. Its skin is already deciding, already adapting, already gone. The entire process is electric. Nerves flash signals across the body like lightning across a map. The arms feel the texture of the surface. The skin samples the light. Chromatophores flare open. Iridophores catch the angle of the sun. The change is nearly instant. Some octopuses can perform dozens of transformations in under a minute. Stone to sand, coral to shadow, night to phosphorescent shimmer. They vanish, not by going anywhere, but by becoming whatever the moment demands. And this mimicry is not limited to backgrounds. Some octopuses mimic entire animals, snakes, lionfish, flatfish creatures with venom or spines or bad reputations, all by rearranging their posture, texture, and color, all without seeing the thing they become. It's as if the knowledge is stored not in memory, but in flesh. This system is both ancient and advanced. Opsins are among the earliest light-sensitive proteins in evolutionary history. Before eyes existed, life still needed to know whether it was in the light or the dark. Octopuses, it seems, have held on to this ancestral wisdom, embedding it into their skin, turning their entire body into a watchful, listening surface. They don't just wear their environment, they feel it. And yet, for all this complexity, they are not invincible. Camouflage, no matter how perfect, is only part of the equation. It buys time. It creates confusion. But when it fails, the octopus must flee. Even then, the skin adapts. As it jets away in a cloud of ink, its body ripples with motion lines, confusing predators further. Some patterns dazzle. Others hypnotize. a flare of white across the back, a strobe of stripes along the arms, illusions layered over escape. It raises a quiet question. Where does the octopus end and the world begin? When a creature wears its surroundings so completely, is it hiding or is it merging? It has no shell, no skeleton, nothing hard to protect it. What it has instead is softness and awareness, a body that listens and answers without pause, that sees not through sight, but through presence. Even in sleep, the skin remains active. Observers have seen sleeping octopuses shift color, twitch, or ripple with patterns, as if dreaming in visual code. Perhaps the skin remembers, perhaps it rehearses, or perhaps it simply responds, even in unconsciousness, to the drift of light and water. To be a creature whose skin can see is to live differently, to blur the boundary between body and world, to feel color and shadow not as decoration, but as necessity. For the octopus, camouflage is not just defense. It is identity. It is language. It is a daily miracle of motion and light, playing out across a canvas that thinks. In the cool darkness, where sunlight fades and pressure rises, the octopus glides with quiet purpose. No sound marks its passage, no rhythmic splash, no steady beat of fins. But within its soft, fluid body, three hearts work in concert, pumping, pausing, pushing life through vessels, unlike ours. The octopus is not built like us. Its blood is not red. Its pulse does not follow the familiar rhythm of mammals. And deep within the folds of its alien biology is a system evolved not for land or air, but for the heavy, oxygen-starved cold of the sea. Two of its hearts are devoted solely to the gills. They beat steadily, pushing blood through the delicate fronds that filter oxygen from water. These branchial hearts are like couriers, collecting deoxygenated blood and delivering it to the gills, where it is recharged with breath. They serve the lungs of the ocean, working in tandem, one for each gill. They do not rest. They cannot afford to. In a world where oxygen comes dissolved and slow, efficiency is everything. The third heart, the systemic one, is the commander. It takes the newly oxygenated blood and distributes it through the body to the brain, the arms, the skin that sees. But this heart has a strange behavior. When the octopus swims, this heart stops. It pauses its beat completely, ceasing its rhythm until the swimming ends. In that moment, the body relies on stored oxygen, on the brief cooperation of stillness and motion. No other animal we know of behaves like this. No other heart stops in motion. But then again, few animals are quite like the octopus. Its blood, too, tells a different story. Where our veins carry a red river, theirs flows blue, not with iron, but with copper. The molecule responsible is called hemocyanin, and it does not bind to oxygen in the same way as hemoglobin. Instead of iron at its core, hemocyanin holds copper atoms, and when it binds with oxygen, it turns a brilliant blue, clear and cold, like the sea itself. This copper-based blood is more than just color. It's survival. In cold, low-oxygen environments, hemocyanin performs better. It binds oxygen more efficiently when the temperature drops or when the water holds less to breathe. It keeps the octopus alive in places where mammals would suffocate, where lungs would gasp and fail. But hemocyanin is also more complex. It must circulate freely in the blood plasma, not tucked into cells like hemoglobin. That makes the blood thick, almost syrupy, and it requires a more forceful system to push it. The three hearts compensate, creating pressure and rhythm that keeps the fluid moving. It is not the simplest design, but it is one finely tuned to the world it inhabits. Evolution did not aim for elegance. It aimed for endurance. This system has drawbacks. When the octopus is stressed by heat, by capture, by changing waters, hemocyanin's performance drops. Oxygen delivery becomes unstable. It's part of why octopuses are so sensitive to environmental shifts, why they sometimes die so quickly in tanks, even when everything appears calm. Their blood speaks a language of chemistry and balance. When that balance tips, they cannot recover easily. And yet, the system grants them something extraordinary: reach. They can venture deep into cold trenches, explore shadowy caves, linger in tide pools as the water warms and recedes. Their bodies adapt moment by moment, not with lungs or warm blood, but with the quiet coordination of hearts and molecules, tuned to the temperature and thickness of the sea. Each heart knows its role. Each beat is timed. Even the placement of the hearts reflects this design. The branchial hearts sit near the gills, close to the intake, ready to pump blood directly to the sites of exchange. The systemic heart rests more centrally, near the esophagus, surrounded by the soft architecture of the body. It is shielded, embedded, waiting to carry breath to the outermost edges of the being. To the farthest suckers, the most delicate nerve ends, to every inch of a body in constant touch with its world. When an octopus moves slowly, the heart works. When it glides across the seafloor, the blood flows in quiet harmony. But the moment it jets forward, propelling itself with speed and force, the systemic heart stills. It is as if the body recognizes a trade-off. Movement is escape, not endurance. Swimming is urgency, not longevity. The heart surrenders for a moment and then resumes when safety returns. This interplay between motion and pulse is a strange reminder that for all its alien features, the octopus is still a creature of rhythm. Its life is a balance of breath and pressure, of contraction and pause. Not the kind we know, not the beat in our chest or the pulse in our wrist, but a deeper, more ancient rhythm, born of salt and copper and the slow tide of necessity. It may not be eternal. The hemocyanin system limits the octopus's efficiency in warm waters. It tires more easily. It is more vulnerable. As oceans warm, some species struggle to survive, their blood unable to carry enough breath. Their hearts strain, their rhythm falters. But even this fragility tells a story, one of specialization, of deep time adaptation. They are not generalists. They are not made for every world. They are made for this one. 3 hearts, blue blood, a system that seems improbable and yet is perfectly real, perfectly functional. It reminds us that nature is not bound by our definitions of normal, that life finds its own solutions, often in silence, often in the dark. In the octopus, evolution has shaped a circulatory system as strange and intricate as the creature itself, not for speed, not for power, but for survival in the deep. A quiet endurance, pulsing through veins the color of the sea. In the ocean, shape is a suggestion, not a rule. Where bones define us, limiting how we bend and fold, the octopus ignores those boundaries completely. It flows like ink, like fabric, like a thought passing through water. It has no bones to anchor it, no skeleton to resist it. Instead, it is made almost entirely of muscle and memory, able to twist and pour itself through cracks smaller than its own eyes, through holes the size of a coin. There are no hinges to snap, no ribs to press. Against, no fixed shape to preserve. What it is at any moment depends entirely on where it wants to go. A full-grown octopus can weigh over 30 pounds, its arms stretching several feet in every direction. Yet it can slide, effortlessly, through an opening barely the width of a bottle cap. The only restriction is its beak, the one hard part of its body, a sharp, chitinous mouth at the center point, where all 8 limbs converge. If the beak fits, the rest of the body will follow, uncoiling like smoke, rippling with control. It doesn't force its way through. It melts. This ability is not a trick or a party trick of biology. It's a survival strategy. In the wild, escape is often a matter of seconds. An eel darts from the rocks. A shark turns just a little too sharply. A spearfisher's shadow passes overhead. The octopus doesn't run. It vanishes, through a crack in the reef, through a hole in a sunken hull, through spaces no predator can follow. And it does so without noise or panic, as if it were never there at all. Its body is a network of soft tissues, muscle, arranged in a lattice, not around bones, but around emptiness. There are no air cavities to compress, no lungs to worry about collapsing. Every part of the octopus is designed to yield. The arms can coil and stretch and wrap in any direction, with suckers lining the underside that grip and taste and feel all at once. These limbs are not tethered by joints or segments. They're more like living ropes, guided by a nervous system that knows exactly where every inch is, even when it's spread across rock and reef and coral. Inside this boneless body is a kind of intelligence tuned specifically for movement, not just forward, but inward, sideways, backward, around. It remembers where it has been. It calculates angles not with eyes alone, but with feel, sensing whether a space is just wide enough, whether a turn will twist too tight. Some researchers believe octopuses map their environment by touch, by texture, by compression, the way a blind person might know a room not by sight, but by steps and air and echo. Their sense of space is tactile. It lives in the arms, in the skin, in the gentle pressure of water against muscle. And the transformation is instant. There is no pause, no reshaping period, no time needed to prepare for compression. One moment, an octopus rests like a mound of flesh against a stone. The next, it is flowing, flattening, narrowing, turning corners. Watching it move through a narrow tube or slide beneath a sealed glass panel feels impossible, like watching a liquid think. In aquariums, keepers know to seal tanks not just with lids, but with weights, clamps, and caution. There are stories of octopuses escaping through tiny gaps in the filtration system, slipping down drainage holes, even crossing short stretches of open floor to reach another tank, sometimes for food, sometimes just to explore. They don't need a clear plan. They just need a crack. Curiosity does the rest. This shape-shifting isn't limited to compression. The octopus can also inflate, flare, expand its skin into ridges and spikes using muscles called papillae. It can make itself look bigger, rougher, more dangerous. Or it can flatten entirely against the sand, pulling its arms close, becoming a smooth disc with no shadow. The control it has over its form is total. There is no single shape of an octopus. There are hundreds, maybe thousands, each one an answer to a different question the world might ask. It's a body built for reinvention, for constant adaptation. Where our bones define who we are and how we move, the octopus rewrites that script with every decision. It is fluid, but never random. Every shift is chosen. Every stretch is purposeful. Even its skin joins the performance, changing color and texture to match its new form, hiding the transition as it unfolds. In the deep, this flexibility offers safety. In shallow pools, it offers camouflage. On the hunt, it offers strategy. An octopus can wedge itself into a narrow crevice, waiting still and silent until a crab wanders by. It can pour itself through coral branches without disturbing the water. It can wrap itself around prey from behind, every limb moving independently, every sucker locking into place. The body is not just a vessel, it's a weapon, a hiding place, a puzzle solved from the inside out. What emerges from this is a creature that defies the usual categories. It is not rigid like a crustacean, not gelatinous like a jellyfish. It is soft but not fragile, powerful but not bulky. It is precise but not limited by its own structure. Instead, it is guided by sensation, by problem solving, by a kind of embodied intelligence that treats form as a temporary condition. And yet, despite all this shape-shifting, the octopus remains whole. Its sense of self does not dissolve with its form. It always knows where it is, even when its arms stretch out in 8 directions. It always remembers how to return. It reforms just as easily as it melts, resuming its shape not out of habit, but because it chooses to. There is something quietly miraculous about that, about a creature that has no skeleton, no anchor, no fixed boundary, and yet is never lost. A creature that can be anything it needs to be in a moment, and then become itself again, without confusion. It reminds us that identity is not always about being solid. Sometimes, it's about knowing how to flow. In the stillness of an aquarium late at night, when the lights have dimmed and the hallways echo only with the hum of filtration systems, something stirs behind the glass. Not frantically, not mindlessly, but with purpose. A lid slides slightly, a latch wiggles free, and a soft shape emerges, flowing upward like a living shadow. It moves along the rim, then down the side, silent and slow. It pauses at another tank, peers inside. There, a crab sleeps. Moments later, arms unfurl and reach with a patience that borders on cunning. By morning, the crab is gone, the visitor returned, and the mystery remains. Stories like this aren't rare. They're almost expected when it comes to octopuses. In labs, aquariums, and wild reefs alike, they perform acts of cleverness that seem to defy what we understand about intelligence. These aren't simple instincts. They're feats of memory, strategy, observation. A creature with no bones, no long lifespan, and a brain shaped nothing like our own has somehow become one of the ocean's most skilled problem solvers. At the heart of it is curiosity. Octopuses do not just react, they explore. When presented with something new, they don't shy away. They touch it, taste it, turn it over with dozens of suckered arms. They observe how things work, and then, more often than not, they figure out how to work them. In one experiment, an octopus was given a jar with a screw-top lid and a crab inside. Without training or instruction, it twisted the lid open. Another was presented with a puzzle box, 8 compartments, each locked in a different way. The octopus solved all 3, often after watching a researcher demonstrate once. This capacity for observational learning is rare in the animal world. Most creatures learn through trial and error, if at all. But octopuses can watch another octopus perform a task and then replicate it, having learned not just what to do, but why. Their brains are large relative to their body size, especially considering their short lives. Some species live only a year or 2, yet in that brief time they display learning, memory, even play. Their brains are arranged in a loop around the esophagus, connected by a ring of nerves that integrates the input from all 8 arms. This decentralized network allows for multitasking. One arm investigates a shell, while another tests the current, and a third picks at a nearby rock. Each arm, semi-independent, gathers information that the brain then weaves into a larger picture. It is a mind made of movement and touch. In the wild, this intelligence shows up in unexpected places. Some octopuses collect coconut shells or broken bits of shell to use later as hiding places, stacking them and carrying them across the seafloor like mobile armor. Others dig small dens, place stones around the entrance, and tidy them each day, gardeners of the deep, arranging their spaces with deliberate care. They've been seen covering themselves with shells or algae to break up their outline, not just blending into the environment, but altering it. And then there's the navigation. When exploring a new area, an octopus doesn't simply wander, it maps. It learns where the best hiding spots are, where prey tends to gather, which routes offer a quick return. If startled, it can retreat directly to a den it found hours before. This spatial memory is not just impressive, it's strategic. A creature that may face predators at any moment cannot afford to guess. In laboratory mazes, octopuses perform with surprising accuracy. They remember paths, avoid dead ends, and can even adapt when the maze is altered. They don't panic. They pause, rethink, and try a new route. When given floating objects in their tanks, bottles, balls, even Lego bricks, they play. They push, they chase, they repeat. It's not feeding behavior. It's not escape. It's play for its own sake, a hallmark of higher cognition. Even more fascinating is their ability to recognize individual humans. Some octopuses in captivity will respond differently to different keepers, approaching one, hiding from another. They remember who fed them, who cleaned their tank, who poked or prodded. Some appear to hold grudges, squirting jets of water at the feet of disliked visitors. Others become oddly affectionate, climbing out to greet familiar hands. This memory, this discernment, isn't just animal training. It's something more nuanced. It's preference. But intelligence in an octopus is not just a series of tricks. It is woven into the way they interact with the world. They are masters of improvisation. Give them a problem, and they will solve it. Block a path, and they will find another. Confine them, and they will slip free. Some aquariums have taken to bolting down fixtures inside octopus tanks, not to protect the octopus, but to keep it from dismantling everything out of sheer curiosity. Drains are sealed, lids are weighted, lights are reinforced, because if there's a way out or in the octopus, we'll find it. And yet, for all their brilliance, they live short lives. Most never make it past 2 or 3 years. Some of the most intelligent species die shortly after reproducing. There is no long childhood, no decades to accumulate wisdom. All that learning, all that curiosity, is packed into a brief flicker of existence. It makes their intelligence feel even more urgent, not just rare, but fleeting. What does it mean to be this clever in such a short time? To solve puzzles, play games, plan escapes, and then vanish into the sea before the world ever really sees you. Perhaps it tells us that intelligence does not always grow with age, that insight and innovation are not the exclusive domain of long-lived creatures. In the octopus, evolution has carved out a different path, one where thinking is fast and fluid, where learning happens on the move, and where brilliance glows briefly but unmistakably before fading back into the deep. In a world of coral mazes and shifting tides, the octopus has become a master of adaptation, a soft-bodied escape artist, a thoughtful observer, a restless mind in a restless sea. In the quiet shallows of a reef, where moonlight filters through water like slow-moving lace, an octopus curls into itself. Its arms fold gently beneath its body, its breathing slows, and for a time, it seems still. But then, something stirs, a ripple of color pulses. Across its skin, first a flush of amber, then a sudden wash of white. Moments later, a jagged band of dark stripes darts from arm to arm, as if reacting to something unseen. The eyes remain closed. The body doesn't move. And yet, the skin tells a story. It's easy to forget that octopuses sleep. They seem too alert, too vigilant, too endlessly aware of every shadow and flicker. But like all animals, they need rest. They retreat into dens, tuck their arms around their bodies, and drift into a state of stillness. For a long time, scientists assumed their sleep was simple, just a period of reduced activity. But more recently, something far stranger has emerged. The octopus doesn't just rest, it dreams. Not in the way we dream, perhaps, but in patterns, in motion, in color. Researchers observing sleeping octopuses have documented a phase where the animals suddenly begin to twitch, their eyes moving rapidly beneath closed lids, their skin flashing in quick succession through different camouflage patterns: rock, sand, algae, stripes, white, dark, gone. These bursts last around 40 seconds, and then fade into stillness again, and then they return. Like clockwork, like cycles. In humans and other vertebrates, this kind of activity marks REM sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming. During REM, the brain is almost as active as when we're awake. Our eyes dart, our limbs twitch. We run through imagined worlds behind closed eyes. The body rests, but the mind travels. That same rhythm now appears to be present in octopuses too. Not only do they experience a quiet baseline sleep, but also a more intense active state, something that mirrors the REM patterns we know. And the color changes are more than just noise. The patterns that flash across their skin during these moments are often complex. They match the displays used in hunting, hiding, warning, and blending. These aren't random pulses of pigment. They're full-bodied expressions, carried out in sequence, as though the octopus were rehearsing past events, reliving memories, or perhaps imagining new ones. What does it mean for a creature to dream without a backbone, without a brain shaped like ours, without language or culture or story? It's a question that brushes up against the edge of consciousness itself. For decades, dreaming has been tied to higher cognition, to animals with long lifespans and rich social lives. But the octopus breaks that pattern. It lives alone. It dies young. And yet, its mind appears to wander while it sleeps. Some researchers wonder if this dreaming state helps the octopus process memories, a way to consolidate what it's learned during waking hours, how to open a jar, how to escape a trap, where to find prey. Others suggest it may serve as a kind of nocturnal training ground, letting the brain refine motor patterns and reactions. But there's also a quieter, deeper possibility that it dreams simply because it can, that the mind, even one so different from our own, is not content to be idle. The fact that its skin joins the dream adds another layer. Most animals dream in the brain alone, invisible to the outside world. But in the octopus, thought and body are so tightly linked that the dreams spill outward. The skin becomes a canvas for unconscious movement. It wears its sleep in flickers and fades, in phantom camouflage and imagined encounters. It shows us what's stirring beneath the surface. And it invites a strange intimacy. To watch an octopus sleep is to glimpse something private, something unknowable, unfolding in silence. It is a mind turned inward, yet still speaking in color. It suggests that the octopus doesn't just act with intelligence, it reflects, replays, reimagines. That the mind of this solitary animal is filled not just with reaction, but with sensation, that it may have an inner life. Whether those dreams are abstract or sensory, whether they're memories or inventions, we may never fully know. But in those flickering moments of sleep when the body stills, the skin dances, and the reef hushes, it's hard not to feel the presence of something remarkable. A being shaped by ancient waters, living in the present moment, yet visiting places only it can see. Beneath the waves, wrapped in its arms, the octopus dreams. And somewhere inside that soft, shifting form, the universe stirs. In the dim quiet of the ocean, where currents move like drifting breath and time feels slower, an octopus prepares for the final chapter of its life. There is no violence in this ending, no sudden collapse or dramatic fall. Instead, there is a gentle unraveling, a biological surrender written into every cell. Long before the moment arrives, the story is already set in motion. The octopus is born, knowing it will not grow old. Its body carries a clock with no reset, a countdown triggered by the very act that ensures the next generation will survive. For the mother, the first sign arrives with the discovery of a place to lay her eggs. She chooses carefully a sheltered rock crevice, a coral alcove, a quiet cavern where the water moves softly enough to keep her clutch clean. She examines the site with slow, deliberate touches, tasting the currents with her suckers and sensing the subtle flow of oxygen. When she finds the perfect place, she anchors herself, and the transformation begins. Her body, once a creature of exploration and curiosity, becomes a chamber of devotion. She lays thousands of eggs, stringing them like tiny pearls across the stone. Each one glistens with new life, and she tends to them with a tenderness the world rarely sees. She stops eating, not out of sacrifice, but because her biology demands it. Hormones surge from her optic glands, shifting her metabolism, consuming her reserves, redirecting all energy toward her offspring. These hormones, in any other creature, would be temporary. In the octopus, they are fatal. Researchers have found that if those glands are removed, the mother begins to behave normally again. She hunts, she grows strong, she recovers. But without the changes triggered by those glands, she abandons her eggs. The babies never hatch. Nature has woven a trade-off so extreme that survival of the species requires the mother's death. So she remains. She cleans the eggs constantly, passing currents of water over them with rhythmic sweeps of her arms to keep them oxygenated. She picks away debris, fends off intruders, and shelters them from sudden shadows. Days blur into nights, and nights into weeks, and she does not rest. Her arms grow thin, her skin dulls. She loses strength, but not purpose. Each movement becomes softer, slower, but still precise. The world outside her den becomes irrelevant. Her universe narrows to a cluster of eggs and the fragile possibility inside each one. As the decline progresses, her body begins to betray her. The optic glands, now fully activated, release chemicals that induce self-destruction, what some call suicide genes. They trigger behaviors that seem tragic to human eyes. She stops grooming. She becomes erratic. Her flesh weakens from within, muscles deteriorating, organs failing one by one. She may pull at herself or pace the walls in confusion, but never far from her eggs. These changes aren't madness. They are the final stages of a predetermined sequence, a biological choreography that guarantees she will not outlive her children. Meanwhile, inside those eggs, the next generation continues to grow. Tiny replicas form arms, suckers, delicate chromatophores already capable of shifting color. They float within their translucent shells, gently rocked by the currents their mother provides. When the time comes, they begin to hatch in a soft cascade. One by one, they drift out into the water, each no bigger than a grain of rice, each carrying the instincts of a creature that will live fast and die young. They begin swimming immediately, propelled by instinct and possibility. Most will not survive the first few days. The ocean is vast, and danger is everywhere, but enough will make it. Enough will grow, explore, solve puzzles, vanish into cracks, display their brief brilliance. Enough will carry the cycle forward. When the last eggs hatch, the mother remains for a moment longer, as if sensing the shift in her purpose. Her body is spent. Her mind is quiet. She leaves the den, not to hunt or hide, but simply because she can no longer stay. The currents catch her. Her arms drift. She dissolves back into the water that shaped her, returning everything she has left to the sea. The males do not fare much better. After mating, their decline is swift. Without the long vigil of brooding, their end comes more suddenly. Some become easy prey. Others simply weaken and drift, their biological purpose complete. Their role, too, is a single, irreversible act. It's tempting to see tragedy in this cycle, but nature rarely deals in tragedy. It deals in survival, in renewal, in the delicate balance between giving life and letting it go. The octopus is not doomed by cruelty. It is shaped by an ancient equation. For a creature that grows so quickly, lives so intensely, and requires so much energy to reproduce, there is no room for longevity. Instead, every moment of their short lives is distilled into curiosity, problem-solving, exploration, beauty. They burn bright, they disappear. And in their place, thousands of tiny wanderers drift into the world, carrying the ocean's oldest stories in their veins. The mother's final act is not suffering. It is devotion, a quiet offering to the next generation, a life that ends so another may begin. Beneath the shifting tides, in a world of shadows and color, the octopus moves through its liquid realm like a dream made real. Its body flows with intention, Its mind calculates silently, and somewhere deep inside, changes are unfolding not just in muscle or memory, but in the very code of life itself. Unlike most creatures, the octopus does not live as a fixed equation, bound by the genetic instructions it was given at birth. Instead, it rewrites those instructions as it goes, editing the messages within its own cells like a poet fine-tuning a line, not once in a generation, but moment by moment. This is not evolution in the slow, glacial sense that shapes species over millennia. It is something else more immediate, more deliberate. It is called RNA editing, and in the octopus, it's not just an occasional glitch or rare mutation. It's a way of life, a tool, a strategy, a kind of biological hacking that allows this animal to adapt, adjust, and respond to its environment in real time. To understand what this means, we first have to zoom in to the molecular level, where the instructions for life are written in the twisting strands of DNA. DNA holds the blueprints, the deep archive of every possible protein a body might need. But those blueprints don't build directly. They're copied first into RNA, a messenger molecule that carries each instruction to the cell's protein factories. In most animals, once the message is copied, it's locked in. Whatever it says, the body obeys. But in octopuses, that message is fluid, flexible, subject to change. Through a complex process, the octopus can alter individual letters in its RNA code, changing an A to an I, which the cell reads as a G. It might sound small, but even one of these edits can shift the shape and function of a resulting protein. In humans and most animals, these edits are rare, tightly controlled, and usually accidental. In octopuses, they are widespread and intentional. In some species, more than 60% of their neural RNA is edited. That's not a bug, that's a feature. And the place where this editing happens most intensely is the brain. Which makes sense, because the octopus depends on its brain more than almost any other invertebrate on Earth. It uses it to learn, to remember, to problem solve. It watches, it adapts, it thinks. The ability to customize proteins in real time may be part of why this brain is so uniquely powerful. By altering how its neurons function depending on temperature or environment, the octopus can fine-tune its nervous system without waiting for slow genetic evolution to catch up. In cold water, for instance, biochemical reactions tend to slow down. For a thinking animal, this can be dangerous. A sluggish brain means missed prey, mistimed escapes, delayed reactions. But the octopus, through RNA editing, can adjust its ion channels, the tiny molecular gates that control the flow of electrical signals in neurons. It essentially recalibrates its neural circuitry to compensate for the cold, making sure signals still fire at just the right speed. It doesn't need to evolve a new brain over generations. It just rewrites what it has. This remarkable flexibility comes with a trade-off. Most animals use DNA mutations to evolve new traits, but the octopus relies so heavily on RNA editing that its DNA changes more slowly than expected. It sacrifices long-term adaptability for short-term control, like a pianist who improvises beautifully on the fly but never writes down the sheet music. It may not pass these edits to its offspring. Each individual must start from scratch, crafting its own version of the story as it goes. Why would nature choose this path? Because the ocean is unpredictable, temperatures change, prey patterns shift, currents pull in new directions. For an animal with a short lifespan and high intelligence, the ability to adjust on the fly is worth the cost. Every octopus is, in a sense, its own experiment, not just born with potential, but actively editing itself to meet the moment. It raises haunting questions about the nature of intelligence. How much of our thoughts are shaped by rigid codes? What might it feel like to be able to subtly rewire your brain in response to your surroundings, not with surgery or therapy, but biologically, automatically? For the octopus, Intelligence is not fixed. It is sculpted from the inside, tailored to the now. Even the way scientists discovered this ability feels like a riddle. They were sequencing the octopus genome, expecting to find patterns of DNA mutations that might explain its cleverness. Instead, they found something stranger, a genome that was oddly static and RNA that danced with change. The answers were not in the DNA archives, but in the live feed, in the text that was being rewritten in real time. The more we learn, the more alien the octopus seems, not because it is cold or distant, but because it challenges our assumptions about what life is allowed to do. We are taught that evolution is slow, that the code of life is fixed, that intelligence must follow a linear path. The octopus gently peels back those beliefs. It shows us a different model, a being that edits itself, not just to survive, but to think better, to feel faster, to respond more precisely. In the end, perhaps the most astonishing thing about the octopus isn't just what it does with its arms, its skin, or its mind. It's what it does with its story. It doesn't just live the life it's given. It rewrites it, word by word, code by code, in the quiet deep of the sea, in the hushed blue twilight of the reef, where light flickers through currents like liquid lace and silence hums just beneath the waves. The octopus waits, not hidden behind a rock or tucked into a crevice, but resting right in the open yet seen by no one. Its skin is not smooth, not soft, not even skin in the way we understand it. In this moment, it has become stone, rugged and knotted, like the rough surface of coral, a perfect illusion. Its body bristles with tiny peaks, ridges, spikes, folds. Each one rises and falls with the fluidity of breath, controlled not by instinct alone, but by thousands of tiny, finely tuned muscles just beneath the surface. These structures are called papillae, and they are not passive. They are not texture like the hair on our arms or the pores in our skin. They are expressive, voluntary, alive. An octopus can raise them in waves, one by one, in patterns or bursts. It can become rough as algae-stained stone, or vanish into the shifting sands of the seafloor, not just by changing color, but by becoming color's texture. Most animals camouflage with pigment. The octopus camouflages with shape. The muscles that control these papillae work like tiny, bundled elevators, pulling the skin upward into peaks and spines, or letting it fall back into smoothness. Some papillae create broad, raised pads that mimic bulbous outgrowths on coral. Others form tiny, pointed spikes, giving the octopus the look of encrusting barnacles or the jagged edge of volcanic rock. They can be smooth in one moment and bristling the next, without a single change in location. It is not just invisibility, it is transformation. This ability gives them a staggering level of control over how they are perceived, not just to the eye but to the world. Texture changes how light falls across their bodies. It alters shadow. It bends perception. A flat pattern of camouflage might fool a passing glance, but the addition of texture fools depth. It tells predators, this is not food, this is not flesh, this is stone, or coral, or driftwood, and the speed of it is uncanny. The change can happen in less than a second, from smooth and soft to jagged and armored, back to smooth again, like a thought passing through water. The papillae respond to both the octopus's mind and its environment, driven by an internal map of what textures exist around it. This isn't mimicry in the sense of copying exactly. It's something deeper, an embodied translation of environment, like a sculptor shaping themselves into a replica of the world. But camouflage is only part of the story. Texture, in The Octopus, is also a language, a way of sensing, a way of feeling. Their skin is lined with receptors that read the water like fingertips in the dark. They can detect flow, turbulence, vibrations, messages that travel faster than light in the ocean's shifting currents. The raised papillae amplify this, giving more surface area, more angles of contact. It's as if the octopus can extend its sense of touch outward into the moving world without ever reaching. There is elegance in this interaction between shape and sense. The octopus does not just react to texture, it speaks it, it becomes it. When it reaches out to explore a rock or a shell, its arms are not just grabbing, they are reading. Each sucker lined with tens of thousands of chemoreceptors and mechanoreceptors, tasting and touching all at once. But above all, it's the skin, that shifting surface, that becomes the most mesmerizing canvas. Not just a costume, not just armor, but a living interface between the octopus and everything that surrounds it. Some species, like the mimic octopus, take this even further. They do not stop at coral or sand. They reshape themselves into the outlines of lionfish, sea snakes, flatfish. They extend their arms to match the rippling of eel bodies, flatten themselves to echo the form of stingrays. The papillae contribute to this illusion, filling out shapes, creating ridges where none exist, sculpting illusion from flesh. It is not mimicry born of guesswork. It is studied, chosen, performed. But what drives this level of control? It's not just survival. It's curiosity. It's intelligence, channeled through the body. The octopus does not simply react. It experiments. It tries different disguises, adjusts, refines. In lab settings, when exposed to unfamiliar textures, plastics, glass, synthetic sponges, they will often adjust their papillae in unusual ways, trying to match what they feel even if they've never encountered it before. They learn by becoming. They adapt not through resistance, but by yielding. And then there are moments when they display textures not to disappear, but to communicate. During courtship, confrontation, or exploration, some species will raise specific papillae, flare them in patterns, or hold them rigid, as if to say something only another octopus would understand. A ripple of tension, a bloom of spikes, a sudden stillness. It's a vocabulary of shape, subtle and fleeting, but full of intention. We often think of language as sound, but in the sea, where silence reigns and vision distorts, the body becomes a voice, texture becomes meaning. For the octopus, this language is not spoken, but sculpted. It is written not in words, but in motion and muscle, in raised skin and vanishing edges. There is a strange kind of poetry to it, this idea that a creature can become its surroundings so completely and yet remain entirely itself, that it can manipulate how the world sees it, feels it, even thinks of it, using nothing more than muscle and memory. The papillae are not decoration. They are identity in motion. In the end, the octopus doesn't just live in its environment, it dissolves into it. And then, with a thought, it returns. In the dim waters of a coastal reef, where predators patrol the borders of coral towers and the sun breaks into shards on the surface above, the octopus watches. It is still, yet aware. Its arms are tucked close, its skin pulsing in time with the ocean's hush. Then, in an instant, the scene fractures. A shadow sweeps through the current, fast and hungry. A barracuda, or perhaps a shark. The octopus launches backward, arms stretching behind it, siphon flaring like the exhaust of a jet. But escape is not speed alone. It is deception. It is confusion. It is the ancient magic of ink. What it releases is not just a dark cloud. It is a story, a chemical smokescreen woven from pigment and warning, from illusion and sensation. Within that cloud, a predator loses its target. Shapes blur, movement vanishes. But the true power of octopus ink goes deeper than sight. It doesn't just hide the body, it hijacks the senses. The substance is a dense mixture of melanin, the same pigment that gives color to skin and hair in many animals, and mucus, a viscous agent that allows the ink to hang thick in the water instead of dissolving. But along with these physical components, octopus ink carries chemical ones too, bioactive compounds that interfere with the predator's ability to smell, to taste, to locate. It floods the area with false signals, mimicking the very scent of the octopus itself. A predator swimming through it may strike wildly at the cloud's center, believing it has the prey in its jaws, only to find nothing at all. It is a phantom, a mirage. One of the most powerful compounds in this mix is tyrosinase, an enzyme that not only aids in producing melanin, but also acts as a sensory disruptor. When it enters the nose or mouth of a predator, it can numb chemical receptors, dulling the shark's acute ability to sense blood, movement, and electrical signals in the water. For a creature that hunts primarily by smell and electromagnetic fields, this is like cutting the wires in a finely tuned machine. Suddenly, the hunter is blind in ways it has never known, and so the octopus escapes not because it was faster, but because it became impossible to track. Because it vanished not just from sight, but from perception itself. There's elegance in this form of defense. It requires no violence, no teeth, no stings, just misdirection. The octopus does not stand and fight. It folds the world around itself, leaving a decoy in its place. Some species even take it a step further, crafting what scientists call a pseudomorph, a shaped ink cloud that matches the rough size and outline of the octopus. For a split second, the predator sees the same form, floating in the same position, and lunges, while the real octopus has already curved away into the rocks. But the use of ink isn't always so dramatic. Sometimes it's slow, deliberate, communicative. Among octopuses kept in close quarters, researchers have observed something subtler: the release of ink, not in panic, but in frustration, a sign of stress, a signal of annoyance, a warning, even, as if saying, "Back off, leave me alone, this is mine." The ink becomes more than defense, it becomes expression. And when octopuses interact with each other, as they sometimes do in rare moments of overlap, whether in mating or territory disputes or simple curiosity, there are signs that ink may be used tactically, to distract, to disrupt, to communicate dominance without needing to harm. In an animal that lacks vocal cords and does not call out across the reef, ink becomes a kind of exclamation point, a boundary drawn in pigment and pulse. Yet for all its utility, the act of inking is not used lightly. The octopus has a limited supply. Each release depletes its stores, which are produced slowly in a specialized gland near the digestive system. It may take days to fully replenish. And in extreme cases, if forced to ink repeatedly in a short period, the octopus risks harming itself. The chemical cocktail it creates is designed to confuse others, but in too great a dose, it can affect the octopus too. In small enclosed areas, or in tanks where currents are still, an octopus can become disoriented by its own defenses. A reminder that even brilliance has boundaries. In ancient times, ink was used by humans to write stories, to trace ideas across parchment and memory. For the octopus, ink has always been story written not in words, but in shapes that drift and vanish. A language of retreat, of refusal, of survival. It is both an ending and a beginning, an erased path and an opened one. And it tells us something about the nature of this animal, that even in danger, it does not default to attack. It defaults to imagination, to misdirection, to outsmarting the moment. In the ocean, where force often reigns, the octopus survives through illusion, and in a swirl of darkness, it disappears, leaving only silence and the memory of where it might have been. In the stillness beneath the waves, where light filters down in shifting bands and colors dissolve into blue, the octopus watches, not casually, not passively, but with a gaze sharpened by millions of years of refinement. Its eyes are not simple globes tucked into sockets, but exquisitely tuned instruments, cameras of flesh and fluid, crafted in the silence of the sea to witness every flicker, every ripple, every faint gesture in the dimness. They do not blink. They do not miss. They are always observing. What's astonishing is not just how well these eyes work, but how they came to be. Evolution, in its quiet patience, has built the camera eye at least twice, once in vertebrates like us, and once in cephalopods like the octopus. Two separate paths. Two entirely different branches of the tree of life, arriving at nearly the same solution. It is a breathtaking example of convergent evolution, a biological echo across time, where different species independently evolve similar traits, not because of shared ancestry, but because the design itself is too effective to ignore. At first glance, the octopus eye looks remarkably like our own. It has a cornea, a lens, a retina layered with photoreceptor cells, muscles that adjust focus, a dark central pupil that contracts and dilates in response to light. But there are differences, subtle, elegant differences, that reveal how this creature sees a world we can only guess at. Their pupils are not round, but horizontal slits. These strange cat-like openings allow for a panoramic view of the ocean floor. As the pupil narrows, it sharpens contrast across the horizontal plane, helping the octopus detect objects lying flat against a textured background, camouflaged prey, or approaching threats masked by coral and stone. The shape gives them precision in a world where visibility is not measured in clarity, but in nuance. Even more extraordinary is the structure of the retina itself. In humans, the light-sensitive cells called photoreceptors are located behind a layer of nerves and blood vessels. Light must pass through these layers before it reaches the sensors, creating a small blind spot where the optic nerve exits the eye. The octopus has no such flaw. In their eyes, the photoreceptors face directly outward, with no obstruction. Light meets sensitivity head-on. There is no blind spot, no detour, just vision, as direct as it can be. And though octopuses lack color vision in the way we understand it, they possess only one type of photoreceptor they have developed, other ways to perceive contrast and texture that go beyond what cones and rods can detect. Some scientists believe their odd, shaped pupils may help them differentiate wavelengths of light based on how it bends, a kind of chromatic aberration that turns color into pattern, giving them access to an alien palette we can't imagine. They may see not with color but with shift, with shimmer, with angle, not the hue of a coral, but the way it moves in shadow. Their ability to detect polarized light adds yet another dimension to their perception. While we see brightness and color, an octopus can also see the orientation of light waves, a superpower in the underwater world where polarization cues help them find prey, signal to others, and detect hidden shapes in an environment designed to hide them. This is especially vital in a world where camouflage is not the exception but the rule, and their eyes are in constant motion, not darting around like ours, but making small, calculated shifts to monitor all directions. Because an octopus lacks a rigid skeleton, it can twist and turn its body in ways that no vertebrate can, often positioning its eyes in opposing directions, one watching above, the other scanning below. Each eye can move independently, gathering different pieces of the world before stitching them back together in the mind. It's a fragmented kind of vision, but not disorienting. For the octopus, it's normal, expected, an efficient strategy in a dangerous, ever-changing world. What they do with this vision is even more remarkable. Octopuses are master observers. They watch silently before acting. They study with their eyes long before their arms reach out. In captivity, they learn to recognize specific humans, not by smell, not by sound, but by sight. A pair of observing eyes becomes familiar, a threat, a friend, a puzzle, and they respond accordingly, adjusting their behavior not just to survive, but to outsmart, to experiment, to engage. In the wild, an octopus may lie in wait for hours, its eyes just barely visible, scanning the reef for patterns that repeat or movements that break rhythm. a crab that moves wrong, a fish that hesitates. Their decisions begin with vision, long before a muscle flexes or a tentacle coils, and once a plan is formed, it's executed with precision, born from information the eyes have already gathered and parsed. Despite their evolutionary distance from us, there is something oddly familiar in the way octopuses look at the world. Their eyes are expressive not in the warm mammalian sense, but in the clarity of attention. You can feel when one is studying you, not reacting, but thinking, calculating, perhaps even wondering. The gaze is steady. There is no panic in it, no confusion, just depth. It's easy to forget that they are not one of us, that this eye, so like our own, evolved in a body so different, a mind so alien. But perhaps that's the point. That vision, clear, precise, dynamic, is not the possession of a single lineage. It is a universal solution to a universal problem: how to navigate a complex, dangerous, beautiful world. And nature, in its slow wisdom, found a way to solve that problem more than once. The octopus sees us not as reflections, but as anomalies, as puzzles to be deciphered, as moving parts in a universe they understand by shape, by motion, by the quiet shimmer of light through water. And perhaps, as we look back at them through aquarium glass or the lens of a diver's mask, we feel something stir, not just recognition, but kinship, a silent understanding between two eyes shaped by different oceans, watching the same mystery unfold. In the shallow reef at dawn, as the sun first stirs the water into light, an octopus drifts across a patch of coral that glows in hues too rich for names. It does not pause to consider what colors it passes over. It doesn't have to. As its body slides forward, its skin shifts, becoming pale pink, then ochre, then an almost electric blue with hints of green marbled through its arms. Without missing a beat, it blends perfectly into the mosaic beneath it, vanishing into texture and tone. There is no delay, no error, no hesitation. The camouflage is seamless. And yet, the animal doing this is, by every standard we know, colorblind. This is not poetic exaggeration. Octopuses possess only a single type of photoreceptor in their retinas, meaning they cannot perceive color in the way that we or many other animals can. They don't see red from blue, orange from violet. To their eyes, the rich kaleidoscope of the reef collapses into gradients of brightness and shadow. Still, their skin knows. Somehow, their bodies respond with an uncanny accuracy to the full spectrum of visible color, matching even complex backgrounds with astonishing precision. It's a paradox. A painter who cannot see color, but works with the mastery of a lifetime, mixing pigments with perfect control. And for years, it puzzled scientists and storytellers alike. How could an animal that doesn't perceive color produce it so vividly and deploy it so precisely? The answer, or at least the beginning of one, lies in the skin itself. Octopus skin is alive with complexity. It is not simply a covering, but a canvas of microscopic organs, chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores that together create a living palette. Chromatophores are elastic pigment sacs, each controlled by a ring of muscles that stretch or contract them like the lens of a camera. Depending on how wide they open, these sacs reveal vibrant shades of red, yellow, brown, and black. Beneath these, iridophores reflect iridescent blues and greens by manipulating light through microscopic plates, like oil on water. And even deeper, leucophores scatter ambient light, mimicking the brightness and color balance of the environment, like the base layer of a painting. Each of these structures operates under the control of the nervous system, and that system is exquisitely sensitive not to color as we think of it, but to contrast, texture, and polarization. What the octopus may lack in chromatic vision, it makes up for with an ability to detect the angle and intensity of light in ways that go beyond our perception. Polarized light, which oscillates in specific directions, bounces differently off various surfaces. The octopus reads this invisible information like another layer of vision, allowing it to interpret the world in depth and pattern, even without hue. One theory suggests that this sensitivity enables octopuses to infer color by how light behaves. The angle of a shadow, the intensity of reflection, the behavior of polarized waves, these can all be clues. Even if it doesn't see blue, it might know the texture of a surface that reflects blue light, and its skin responds accordingly. It's not guessing, it's decoding. And there is another theory, more startling still. Some scientists believe the octopus might be seeing with its skin. Embedded in their flesh are light-sensitive proteins called opsins, the same kind found in eyes. These proteins respond to changes in ambient light, and while they don't form detailed images like an eye, they may allow the octopus's skin to detect brightness, wavelength, or direction. In this view, the animal is not just covered in skin. It is covered in 1,000 tiny eyes. Each patch of skin becomes its own sensor, feeding back information, helping the octopus modulate its color in real time. There may be no central decision made, no top-down command from brain to body. Instead, the skin adjusts itself reflexively, locally, the way a field of grass bends under wind, not by thinking, but by being. This distributed intelligence, this idea of a body that perceives and responds without centralized awareness, blurs the boundaries of what we think a brain is supposed to do. It raises questions that stretch the edges of neuroscience. Is the octopus thinking about the color it should become, or is color simply what it becomes, the same way a mirror reflects whatever stands before it? In laboratory tests, even when their eyes are covered, octopuses still change color in response to light. In some cases, they shift their patterns even in total darkness, as if following an internal rhythm, a kind of visual memory of the space they occupy. It suggests a system that remembers not just form or structure, but the feeling of color, the sensory echo of a place, recorded in muscle and skin. And the precision is uncanny. They don't just match solid colors. They mimic gradients, shifting patterns, speckled textures. They replicate not just the palette of their environment, but its visual noise, the randomness of sand, the branching of algae, the swirl of dappled light from above. And they do it with speed. Within a second, a pale, smooth octopus can become a jagged, rust-colored outcrop of reef, complete with shadows and ridges that seem to bend the water around them. Perhaps most extraordinary is that these changes are not limited to camouflage. An octopus may flash contrasting, bands of black and white to warn arrival, pulse rhythmic waves of color across its body during courtship, or ripple patterns of confusion to distract prey. Each display is purposeful. Each is a message, written in the language of light and contrast, expressed by a creature that does not see color, yet wields it fluently. So maybe color is not just a matter of sight. Maybe it's a kind of sensation, deeper than vision, rooted in the way light moves across the world and how a body learns to feel it. The octopus does not need to name the hues it becomes. It simply becomes them. A living mystery, gliding through shadows, writing color on water like breath on glass. And somehow, though it never sees itself, it is always perfectly in tune. In the shifting calm of the sea floor, where sand flows like breath and everything is softened by distance, an octopus rests, half tucked into a crevice. One of its arms lies motionless, curled gently into the sediment. But even detached from the body, an octopus arm can move. It can writhe, bend, curl toward touch, even grasp as though remembering what it once was. There is no heartbeat within it, no oxygen flowing through vessels. And yet, for minutes, sometimes hours, it behaves as if it's still alive. In some ways it is. Each of the octopus's 8 arms is not just a limb, it is a system of its own. Inside a single arm are tens of millions of neurons, more than in a frog's entire brain. In fact, Nearly 2/3 of an octopus's total neurons are found outside the central brain, distributed like stars through a galaxy of muscle and nerve. This means that each arm can sense, process, and respond with a degree of independence. It doesn't simply take orders from the brain, it interprets, it decides, it remembers. When an arm is severed by predator, by accident, by force, it doesn't go limp like a string cut from a puppet. It continues to move with eerie purpose, sometimes even reaching toward stimuli like food or retreating from touch. In laboratory experiments, detached arms have been observed, responding to pain, reacting to temperature changes, and even attempting to crawl away when prodded. The movement isn't random, it's intentional, as though the limb itself retains a sliver of sentience. This capacity comes from the decentralized architecture of the octopus's nervous system. The brain does not micromanage the body. It delegates, it sets intention, but allows the arms to make their own judgments about how to carry out a task. If the animal wants to explore a rock, it doesn't need to choreograph every movement. It can simply direct an arm toward the object, and the arm handles the rest, mapping the surface, testing pressure, adjusting grip. It's a partnership between center and edge, brain and limb. This autonomy is so complete that in some species, when a limb is injured beyond repair, the octopus will actively sever it, using its own beak to cut it loose. And the sacrifice isn't permanent. Over time, the octopus will regrow what was lost: arm, nerve, tissue, skin. Slowly, silently, it will rebuild itself. The process begins almost immediately. Within days of losing an arm, a small nub begins to form at the site of the wound. Cells multiply rapidly, organizing themselves into new muscle fibers, new blood vessels, new bundles of nerves. Unlike in humans, where scar tissue often limits regrowth, the octopus heals cleanly. It doesn't just seal the damage, it restores function. The new arm will eventually look and move just like the original, complete with suckers, chromatophores, and the complex, semi-independent neural network that gives it agency. This capacity for regeneration is rare in the animal kingdom. Some lizards can regrow tails, certain starfish can regenerate limbs, but few animals can recreate the fine architecture of a working limb with such precision. The octopus does it quietly, without ceremony, as though it's just another function of the body. No fanfare, just renewal. And it raises a deeper question: where, exactly, does memory live? If an octopus arm can grasp without the brain, if it can react to stimuli, if it can even learn simple tasks independently, then what happens to those traces of experience? Are they stored locally, inside the limb's own neural net? And when a new arm grows, does it come with a clean slate? Or does something remain a phantom of behavior, a ghost of movement? We don't yet know. The mysteries of distributed intelligence are still unfolding. But what's clear is that the octopus doesn't fit neatly into the categories we've drawn around animals, cognition, or even selfhood. Its body is not simply directed from the top down. It's a democracy of tissue and thought, each arm a kind of satellite brain, capable of its own quiet decisions. It challenges our sense of where the mind ends and the body begins. To watch an octopus lose a limb is to witness something brutal, but to see it regenerate that same limb, and to know that it may one day move with the same grace, the same grasp, the same hidden understanding. It feels like watching a miracle wear a disguise of biology. It is not a trick. It is not magic. It is simply the octopus, being what it is, a creature that rebuilds, a creature whose thoughts may extend into each curling tip of its body, a creature that remembers, even in pieces. In the warm shallows of the Indo-Pacific, where coral fingers stretch toward sunlight and shadows ripple across the seafloor, something peculiar moves just beneath the sand. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than a ripple of current, a shimmer of silt. But then it changes. What looked like a flatfish now becomes a snake, long and sinuous, winding itself in and out of broken coral. Then, in a blink, the snake dissolves, replaced by an innocent blob of algae, swaying gently in the tide. None of these creatures are what they appear to be. They are all the same octopus. The mimic octopus, discovered only recently by science in the late 1992, revealed what generations of divers and fish had likely already known, that octopuses are not merely capable of blending into their surroundings. They can become something else entirely. Not just invisible, but deceptive. Not just disguised, but transformed. While many animals use camouflage to avoid detection, octopuses take it further. They create illusions. Their bodies are soft, boneless, and fluid, capable of reshaping in an instant. They don't only match the color and texture of the environment. They can raise fleshy protrusions to mimic jagged coral, flatten their bodies against rock, or twist their limbs into the precise shapes of sea snakes, lionfish, crabs, and more. This is not instinctual mimicry, encoded deep in their DNA from birth. It is situational, strategic, performed in real time, based on what the octopus sees around it. To mimic a flatfish, an octopus flattens its arms and pulls them into a pointed oval, rippling its body as it glides just above the ocean floor. To resemble a venomous lionfish, it extends two arms in opposite directions, undulating them like spiny fins. And to mimic the deadly sea snake, it tucks 6 of its arms into a hidden burrow and leaves only 2 visible, waving them in coordinated serpentine patterns. Each performance is tailored. Each illusion is chosen for the threat at hand. Faced with a predatory damselfish, the octopus might choose the snake. In the presence of a territorial triggerfish, it might opt for the lionfish. It is as if the octopus considers, decides, then acts, crafting its disguise not just to disappear, but to manipulate. But disguise isn't limited to mimicry alone. Even without imitating other creatures, the octopus is a master of visual deceit. Their skin is lined with chromatophores, pigment-filled sacs that can be expanded or contracted to shift color in milliseconds. Beneath these are iridophores and leucophores, reflecting light in dazzling and subtle ways. Together, these layers allow the octopus to match the precise hue, brightness, and reflectivity of the surrounding environment. A patch of skin can go from smooth white to pebbled gray to striped black in less than a second. And it is not only color that changes. Octopuses possess papillae, tiny muscular structures embedded in their skin that can rise or flatten, altering texture to mimic surfaces as diverse as barnacles, sand, or spiky coral. In moments of danger, an octopus might not only become a rock in appearance, but in touch, rough, irregular, unremarkable. This ability is governed not only by visual input, but also by memory and context. Studies suggest octopuses can recognize places they've been before and choose camouflage patterns that best suit a familiar environment. They are not guessing, they are remembering, learning, adapting. They even adjust their camouflage based on the angle from which a predator might approach. When viewed from above, they may match the ocean floor. From the side, they might mimic shadows. From below, they reflect the shimmer of light filtering down from the surface. Some researchers believe their bodies can even sense light directly. Thanks to opsins in their skin, light-sensitive proteins typically found in eyes. This means their arms, their mantle, their very surface may be capable of detecting subtle changes in illumination, allowing them to fine-tune their disguise without ever turning to look. But the deception doesn't end with what they can become. Sometimes, the octopus doesn't try to disappear at all. It does the opposite. It confuses, it startles, it dazzles. Some octopuses will erupt in bold displays of contrast, pulsing black and white bands across their bodies, flaring their arms in sudden bursts of color to confuse or frighten attackers. Others will eject a cloud of ink, a smokescreen that carries not only pigment, but chemicals that interfere with a predator's sense of smell, giving the octopus precious seconds to vanish in the haze. One moment they are present, a thing with form and intention. The next, gone, leaving only bubbles and dust. This shape-shifting ability gives the octopus a level of control over its environment that few animals possess. It is not fast in the traditional sense. It cannot outrun a barracuda or overpower a shark, but it can disappear, it can mislead, it can become what the predator fears, what it ignores, or what it cannot comprehend. And it does so with a body that obeys not just the will of the brain, but of the moment. A performance, both elegant and necessary. When we speak of intelligence in animals, we often look for language, tools, problem solving. But the octopus reminds us that intelligence can also be embodied, written into flesh, muscle, pigment, and reflex. An intelligence that doesn't just think, but becomes. To watch an octopus vanish into coral or conjure another creature from its own skin is to see adaptation at its most fluid. There are no hard edges here, no lines that cannot be crossed. The octopus is not one thing, it is many. It is whatever it needs to be. And as it melts into the sea, once again, no flash, no sound, no sign, it leaves us wondering not just how it did it, but how it decided to. Beneath the waves, in the hush of a moonlit cove, an octopus stretches one of its arms across a rock covered in shell fragments and algae. The motion is slow, deliberate, almost like thought made visible. Its suckers press gently into the uneven surface, each one tasting, touching, sensing not only what lies ahead, but whether it is worth the effort to grasp. The octopus doesn't have to see its environment to understand it. It reaches, and in that reach, it knows. Unlike the blunt instruments of human hands, an octopus's arms are alive with sensation. Lining the underside of each one are hundreds of suckers. Some species have over 2,000 inches total, and each of these is not merely a tool for suction or grasp. Each is its own complex sensory organ, packed with neurons that allow it to detect texture, shape, and most surprisingly, chemical signatures. In other words, the octopus tastes with its arms, not just when food is placed in its mouth, not just when it decides to eat, but with every movement. With every exploration. The receptors embedded in the skin of their suckers can detect amino acids or the building blocks of life. When a sucker touches the surface of a crab's shell, it doesn't just register hardness or curve. It reads the biochemical signals left behind the residue of movement, the trail of decay, the scent of fear or readiness. It tells the octopus whether this is food, foe, or something else entirely. And the decision to pursue or release is made in an instant, often without needing to involve the central brain at all. Because here is the other marvel. Much like how the octopus distributes its neurons beyond its head and into its arms, its sense of decision-making can also be localized. The arms think. They sample the world independently, processing information without always checking back with the brain. An octopus can be busy inspecting one corner of a rock with 3 arms, while the others investigate crevices or drift watchfully in the current, each one acting like an agent of the whole, yet capable of solo missions. Imagine a hand that could reach into a bag and know not only what object it touches, but how salty it is, how ripe, whether it once moved or still does. Now multiply that by 8. The suckers themselves are astonishingly strong. Each one can lift the equivalent of several pounds, and they can grip with such precision that they're able to peel a shrimp or uncork a jar. But their strength is matched by subtlety. The suckers can feel a surface and detect grooves no wider than a hair. They can trace the edge of a shell like a blind sculptor reading the memory of shape. And because each sucker can operate semi-independently, they ripple in waves of movement, almost like thought traveling down an arm, each one asking and answering questions about the world it touches, and they never stop learning. If a new texture is introduced, a plastic bottle, an unfamiliar fish, a hand reaching too close, the suckers respond with a mix of curiosity and caution. They may grasp it, explore it, then pass the information along through the arm's internal network of neurons, feeding a memory that may inform future behavior. In some cases, octopuses have been known to show preferences, choosing one type of shell over another, one kind of prey, while ignoring others based solely on how it feels and tastes under their suckers. In this way, their perception is not passive. It is active, ongoing, and deeply connected to experience. And it is this connection between motion, sensation, and decision that gives the octopus such grace. It doesn't move randomly. It flows, guided by a symphony of feedback. Each arm reaches because it knows, and it knows because it reaches. The boundary between sensing and acting blurs until they become one. Even in captivity, where the world is reduced to glass and gravel and human hands, this intelligence remains vivid. Octopuses will explore the lids of tanks, unscrew jars from the inside, and carefully investigate anything introduced into their environment. They learn who feeds them. They learn which side of the tank is quieter, warmer, more interesting. They use their suckers to feel the difference between kindness and intrusion. And once they've learned something like which tube contains a crab or which puzzle hides a treat, they don't forget. But perhaps most remarkable is how this awareness is not funneled into a single point of consciousness. The octopus doesn't need to watch everything because its arms are already watching. It doesn't. You need to think everything through because the thinking is distributed, embedded in the very limbs that move, feel, and taste. It is, in a sense, a body of minds. So the next time you imagine the touch of an octopus, know that it is not just testing you. It is reading you. It is tasting your skin. It is learning your shape, your salt, the story left behind in the oils and warmth of your hand. It might hold on longer than you expect, not in fear, not in threat, but in wonder. Because for the octopus, every touch is a question, and every sucker waits patiently for an answer. In the cool shadows beneath a reef, where light flickers like candle flame across coral and kelp, a young octopus glides silently through the water. Its arms trail behind it like banners in a gentle current, each sucker tasting the textures of the world. It is only weeks old, and already the clock is ticking. Not in years, not even in seasons. For many octopuses, time is a thin thread stretched short, measured in mere months from the first breath to the last flicker of motion. 6 months, maybe 12. A few stretch to 24 in the deepest, darkest waters. But most live lives as brief as a summer storm, dazzling in intensity, gone before the leaves can turn or fall. There is something almost cruel in the brilliance of such a life. From the moment they hatch, octopuses emerge alone into a vast and indifferent sea. No mother waits. No father hovers nearby. The eggs are often scattered across rocks or shells in long, gelatinous chains, watched over until the very end by a mother who will never see her young rise. Once they emerge, blinking into the filtered sunlight of the shallows, the hatchlings are on their own, tiny, translucent specks, no bigger than a grain of rice, drifting with the plankton, already learning to hide, already hunted. And yet, despite the danger, they grow fast, accelerating like fire lit under skin. Their muscles expand, their arms lengthen, their suckers bloom. In a matter of weeks, the baby that floated like mist becomes a hunter. It learns to stalk, to pounce, to vanish in a puff of sand. It learns which shapes to mimic, which textures to trust. And all the while, its neurons multiply like stars. A brain sharpens. A body becomes a canvas of shifting colors and textures. It wastes no time. It cannot afford to. To be an octopus is to live with urgency braided into your biology. Their metabolic rate is blisteringly high, burning through energy to support their active lives. Every moment is spent building muscle, skill, memory, but also, unknowingly, building toward an inevitable end. The very machinery that makes them so intelligent, so fast, so aware, also makes them short-lived. Their cells wear out quickly. Their systems offer no longevity plan. Nature has chosen intensity over duration, and then comes reproduction, the turning point, the final act. For males, the end often comes swiftly. After finding a female, he will extend one specialized arm, the hectocotylus, delicately transferring a packet of sperm into her mantle cavity. Sometimes he will flee, retreating to solitude, where his body slowly begins to fail. Sometimes he is not given the chance. In several species, the female consumes him either during or after mating, absorbing his body into her own in a cycle of life that spares no sentiment. His nervous system collapses not long after, and his body shuts down from the inside out. For the female, the ending is slower and in some ways more tragic. She retreats to a hidden den, clutches her eggs to the ceiling, and begins to brood. She does not leave. She does not eat. She will starve herself in absolute devotion to the delicate orbs of life above her. Her skin pales, her muscles weaken, but she continues constantly grooming the eggs, wafting oxygen over them with a rhythmic wave of her arms, chasing away parasites, all while her own cells begin to unravel. This decline is not an accident. It is orchestrated. After reproduction, a cascade of biological signals triggers cellular suicide. The optic glands in the brain release hormones that initiate programmed self-destruction. Organs dissolve. Tissues waste away. It is not a disease. It is destiny. She will die just as the eggs hatch, and the cycle begins again. But within that heartbreak lies something quietly astonishing. In the time between birth and death, between the hatchling's first drift and the final curl of a dying arm, the octopus experiences a fullness of life that most creatures never know. In mere months, it solves puzzles, opens jars, learns patterns, remembers faces. It plays, it explores, it escapes. It constructs dens, crafts tools, and interacts with a complexity that astonishes even those who study intelligence across species. What does it mean to live so briefly, and yet so completely? There are humans who live 8 decades and never build what an octopus does in half a year. No monuments, no names, etched in stone, but something else entirely, an embodied life, raw and immediate, lived in constant motion, in constant awareness, no second chances, no long winters to rest, only now. And that might be the lesson their short lives whisper to us. That duration isn't the only measure of value. That brilliance can be condensed into a smaller flame. That a fleeting life, lived with depth and purpose, may be no less meaningful than one that spans a century. To witness an octopus in its last days is to feel a quiet ache, a sense that this creature, who seemed to think and feel and wonder, had only just begun. And yet, in the span of that brief existence, it may have felt more of the world than we do in years. It does not rage against the end. It accepts it. Having lived fully, it lets go, and leaves behind nothing but empty shells, inked water, and the soft, swirling possibility of something new beginning again. In the dim, pressing blue of the deep, where sunlight barely whispers, and oxygen thins to a slow breath, the octopus moves with unhurried grace. Its arms drift like ink spilled in slow motion, tasting the dark, feeling the hush of water dense with salt but sparse in air. It does not struggle. It does not pant. It does not need to rise. Here, in the low oxygen pockets of the sea, where many creatures would falter or flee, the octopus simply thrives. Its secret is carried not in its lungs, but in its blood. Unlike the rich crimson that pulses through human veins, the blood of an octopus runs blue, not metaphorically, not in poetry, but in chemical truth. This striking hue comes from hemocyanin, a copper-based molecule that binds to oxygen in place of the iron-based hemoglobin found in mammals. In cold water, and particularly in environments where oxygen is scarce, copper outperforms iron. It holds on more tightly to every available molecule of O2, pulling it from the seawater and sending it coursing through a body designed to extract as much life as it can from even the most barren depths. Hemocyanin is a masterwork of biochemical adaptation, and the octopus has 3 hearts to keep it moving. 2 of these hearts pump blood through the gills, where oxygen is absorbed. The 3rd heart, the systemic heart, drives the now oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. But in a strange twist of physiology, this central heart actually pauses whenever the octopus swims. It beats when the octopus is at rest, but when the body surges forward in a jet of water, the heart stills. Swimming becomes a tax, a price. And so, most of the time, the octopus glides, crawls, drifts. It conserves. It listens to its blood and moves accordingly. This is a creature that knows its limits, not as a weakness, but as a compass. And in return, it explores places few others dare. The undersides of ice shelves, volcanic vents, caves with no exit but a single ribbon of light. Some octopus species live in tide pools, surviving sudden changes in salinity, oxygen, and temperature. Others descend to depths where oxygen drops to near zero, where cold presses in like weight and light fades to memory. There, their copper-rich blood continues its quiet labor, binding, carrying, nourishing, keeping a bright mind alive in a breathless world. But this mastery is now being tested. As oceans warm, they hold less oxygen. Warm water expands, spreads, and loses the ability to carry the same life-giving gases. In some places, entire zones of the sea are becoming hypoxic, dead zones where the oxygen has bled away, where fish drift listlessly or perish. For the octopus, so exquisitely adapted to a narrow range of conditions, this is not just an inconvenience, it is an existential threat. Their blood, so suited to the cold, becomes less efficient as temperatures rise. Hemocyanin doesn't bind oxygen well in heat. The copper lets go, the body starves, and the octopus, who once prowled confidently through shadowy dens and twilight waters, finds itself struggling to breathe in places it once called home. They are not alone in this. All across the marine world, creatures shaped by millions of years of quiet stability are being asked to change faster than biology permits. For octopuses, the urgency is doubled. Their short lives leave little room for generational adaptation. Their complexity, a gift, comes with cost. Neural power, high metabolism, a need for oxygen-rich blood to feed brains and bodies that burn bright and fast. And when the water no longer gives what it once did, the very brilliance that defines them becomes a burden. Some species may move. Already, octopuses are showing up in regions where they were once rare. Warmer waters pull them northward or deeper, chasing the invisible lines of survivable oxygen and temperature. But not all can relocate. Not all will find the niches they need. The right cave, the right prey, the right pattern of currents. Evolution is not a ladder, nor a race. It is a balance. And that balance, for the octopus, is tipping. Still, they persist. For now, in research labs and sea pens, scientists have begun to measure the ways octopuses adjust how their hearts react to temperature spikes, how their blood chemistry shifts, how their behaviors change when oxygen drops. In some cases, they move less, eat less, hide more. In others, they become agitated, restless, attempting to flee a threat they cannot see. There is no predator to outwit here, only the water itself. But the story of the octopus has always been one of quiet brilliance, of resilience stitched into soft bodies, of evolution finding a way not with armor or speed, but with sensitivity and cunning. If any creature can navigate the edge between what was and what is becoming, It might be this one, because it listens to its body, because it knows the sea like breath, because even in the dark, it finds a way to move. And as long as there is oxygen, even just enough, the octopus will slip through the cracks, turn a stone, and carry on. Its blood, blue as the twilight deep, will continue to pulse, carrying not just life, but the memory of what it means to endure. Beneath the endless gray veil of the northern Pacific, where fog rolls over the waves like breath on glass, a shadow stirs in the deep. It moves slowly, deliberately, and entirely unseen. Its arms unfurl in all directions, gliding over rocks and silt, reaching through forests of kelp, tasting the world one sucker at a time. This is no ordinary cephalopod. It is the largest of them all, the giant Pacific octopus, a creature of legend and quiet enormity, whose span can stretch longer than a city bus, and whose presence feels more like a current than an animal. Most are not quite that size. Many never grow beyond a modest arm span, 5 or 6 feet across, weighing less than a toddler. But some defy expectation. The record holders, those rare, hulking individuals caught in the net of time and science, have stretched 30 feet, tip to tip, and weighed over 600 pounds. These are the monsters of mariners' tales, real and undoubted, though rarely seen. They do not rise to the surface. They do not seek attention. They live quietly in cold, deep waters, where pressure weighs heavy and light arrives only as memory. Despite their size, they are not predators of chaos. The giant Pacific octopus is a patient hunter. It waits in rocky dens, watching with eyes that blink like understanding. It tracks prey with uncanny stillness, then moves in sudden ghost-like precision. Crabs, clams, fish, they all vanish beneath those sprawling arms, pulled into a beak that can crack bone and shell alike. Even sharks have been known to lose battles to a determined octopus, dragged into caves and drowned in silence. Yet, despite their strength, they are solitary and elusive. Each one is a ghost of the reef, appearing and disappearing with the tide. Some have been found tucked into shipwrecks, dens woven into coral, like something carefully curated. They use rocks and shells to barricade their homes, arranging their space with the deliberate touch of an artist. In captivity, they learn their keepers' faces, unscrew lids, solve puzzles, and escape tanks with clever mischief. And in the wild, they do the same only with far fewer witnesses. The mystery of their size is as fascinating as their presence. Why would a creature evolve to be so massive in a world where subtlety often means survival? The answer lies partly in the water itself. Cold oceans slow metabolism, allowing longer growth. Deep environments limit predators, and in those murky depths, where few rivals dwell and food is still abundant, size becomes an advantage. A larger reach means more ground to hunt, more strength to hold prey, more room for a complex nervous system. But not all octopuses are giants. In the warm shallows of the tropics, a different kind of octopus thrives, tiny, intricate, and no larger than a fingernail. The octopus wolfie, the smallest species known to science, lives in coral rubble and tide pools, darting between grains of sand and fragments of shell. It weighs less than a paperclip. Its entire world can be held in a single palm. And yet, within that miniature frame is the same intelligence, the same curiosity, the same elegant body plan that fuels its massive cousin in the north. This incredible range, from microscopic to monstrous, makes the octopus one of the most morphologically diverse creatures on Earth. And yet, they all share the same fundamental parts: a soft body, a central brain with arms that think, skin that shifts color and texture like a living painting, and a quiet sentience that suggests more than instinct alone. Whether measured in inches or yards, the essence remains. In aquariums, where some of the largest individuals have been observed, the giant Pacific octopus often becomes the star. Visitors watch as its arms ripple across the glass, suckers probing each corner, each child's hand pressed on the other side of the tank. They reach for the octopus, and the octopus reaches back, not randomly, but selectively, with preference, with what seems like decision. There are stories of octopuses choosing favorite keepers, showing excitement when particular people enter the room, and responding to names or routines. This is not behavior you expect from something that outweighs you and could tear you apart with ease. But the giant Pacific octopus does not tear. It explores, and it remembers. In the open ocean, they are almost never seen in full. Their size makes them seem mythic, but their nature keeps them hidden. When divers encounter them, it is often brief, a shadow gliding past, a curious eye beneath a ledge, a ripple of skin like rustling silk. They do not charge, they do not announce. They vanish as quickly as they appear, a reminder that the ocean still holds its secrets close. Even in death, the largest individuals leave behind little. A tangle of arms, a den gone silent, empty shells scattered like fallen leaves. The ocean takes them back quickly, and the record books remain sparse, just a few blurry photos, a handful of measurements, stories passed down by divers and fishermen who swear they saw something huge, something impossible, curling back into the blue. And maybe they did, because in the vastness of the Pacific, there are places no light has touched in human memory. Trenches deeper than Everest is tall, caves that spiral endlessly into the crust of the earth, zones where pressure could crush steel, and yet life continues. In those places, where the water is black and eternal, the giant still drifts, not in crowds, not in armies, but alone, silent, patient, watching. So whether you marvel at the creature the size of a coin or the one that could fill a room, know this: size is only one kind of wonder. The smallest octopus holds the same alien mind, the same strange brilliance as the largest. Both live without bones, without borders, sensing the world in ways we're only beginning to understand. And both remind us that the ocean is not ours. It is full of things that came before us, that will outlast us, and that move, even now, through waters deeper and stranger than we know. In the hushed stillness of midnight aquariums and tide-slick laboratories, a strange kind of jailbreak plays out, silent, deliberate, and almost always unseen. It begins with a ripple in the water, a glint of moonlight on a shifting form, and the gliding motion of an arm probing the edges of a tank. There is no splash, no chaos, just the soft, persistent click of suckers feeling along glass, testing for give, for space, for opportunity. Then, impossibly, the octopus is gone. What remains is a dripping trail on tile, a cracked lid slightly ajar, or a startled technician returning to an empty tank. Among all the creatures in the ocean, few possess the blend of strength, dexterity, and startling intelligence that makes the octopus a natural-born escape artist. Its boneless body can collapse through openings the size of a coin. Its arms move with near-conscious autonomy, and its curiosity is as relentless as gravity. When faced with a barrier, the octopus does not despair. It investigates, it tests, and often it finds a way through. The stories are not folklore. They are logged in lab notes, confirmed by security cameras, whispered with awe among marine biologists. In one of the most famous accounts, an octopus named Inky slipped out of his enclosure at the National Aquarium of New Zealand, crossed the floor of the aquarium undetected, and slithered through a floor drain that led to the open sea. The drain was just 6 inches wide. He had never been shown the path, and yet he found it. It was not desperation that drove him. Inky was healthy, well-fed, and accustomed to his tank. But like so many of his kind, he seemed to know there was more beyond the glass. Another octopus, kept at the University of Otago, would routinely sneak out of its tank at night, not to escape, but to raid neighboring tanks. It would lift the lid, slide out, open a second tank full of crabs, feast under cover of darkness, then return to its own enclosure before morning rounds. Keepers were mystified until cameras revealed the nightly heist. The octopus was not only escaping, but timing its return with eerie precision. Then there was Otto, an octopus at a German aquarium, who developed a dislike for a spotlight that shone above his tank. One evening, staff noticed the light had shorted out. They repaired it. The next night, it happened again. Finally, they set up a watch. What they saw was astonishing. Otto had learned to climb up the side of his tank, aim a jet of water at the light, and short it out deliberately, accurately, and repeatedly, not to escape, simply because the light annoyed him. These stories are not exceptions. They are part of a growing tapestry of behavior that suggests a kind of intelligence fundamentally different from our own alien, but not lesser. Octopuses explore with intent. They manipulate locks, unscrew jars, and memorize mazes. In captivity, they grow bored easily and require puzzles to stay engaged. They distinguish individuals, recognize patterns, and seem to hold grudges. One researcher reported being squirted with water repeatedly by an octopus who remembered a minor irritation from days before. It was not random, it was personal. This intelligence is housed not just in the brain, but in the body itself. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are located in its arms, allowing them to act semi-independently. Each limb can explore, taste, and react without direct input from the central brain, like a team of scouts feeding back information to a general. This decentralized awareness allows for extraordinary coordination and for problem solving that doesn't rely solely on a single center of control. It also means that escape can happen in real-time collaboration between the body and the mind. They do not just find openings, they learn the mechanics. In experiments, octopuses have been observed opening screw-top jars from the inside trapped within. With no prior demonstration, they twist, turn, and solve their way out. Others have been shown how to open a complex latch and then taught nothing further. Days later, presented with a similar mechanism, they replicate the solution, not by instinct, by memory. In the wild, escape is survival. A sudden flash of teeth, a shift in current, a shadow from above, and the octopus is gone, vanished into a cloud of ink, tucked into a crevice, or camouflaged so completely it might as well not exist. But in captivity, escape becomes something else. It becomes a game, a compulsion, a quiet protest against confinement. Some have even been seen leaving water altogether. In intertidal zones, where pools form between rocks, octopuses will emerge from the sea, crawl across land, and slip into a distant pool in search of food. They do not panic out of water. They know how to hold breath, how to keep gills moist, how to time the journey. Their bodies ripple across stone like living rope. In laboratories, this same behavior has played out unexpectedly. An octopus crawling out of its tank, sliding down a counter, making its way toward a sink or a neighboring enclosure, or simply away. And when they are found sometimes hours later, often in places no one thought to look, there is rarely fear in their eyes, just stillness, alertness, as if they are asking, why not? Perhaps this is what makes the octopus so captivating, not its strangeness, but its refusal to be bound by it. It defies rules, not through defiance alone, but through understanding. It learns our patterns, probes our tools, and tests the spaces we believe are secure. It reminds us that intelligence is not limited to speech or tools or civilization, that cunning can emerge in silence. That freedom can be pursued with nothing but a soft body and a sharp mind, and that somewhere, even now, an octopus may be gently lifting the edge of a lid, reaching toward the unknown, already one step ahead of the world that thought it had been contained. In the deep silence of the ocean, where no voice rises and no language echoes, something extraordinary is thinking. It has no spine, no bones, no familiar face. Its body changes shape at will, shifts colors like a fever dream, and stretches across the rocks in a slow, fluid ballet. It does not build cities or write poetry. It leaves no fossils of philosophy, but it watches, it solves, it chooses. And in the dark stillness of its cave, an octopus waits and seems to know that it's waiting. What, then, is this awareness? Where does it begin? And could it be that this strange alien creature is not just intelligent, but conscious? The question is heavier than it seems. Consciousness is slippery, even in our own species, difficult to define, impossible to measure. It's not the same as intelligence, though the two often walk together. Intelligence can be tested, puzzles solved, tools used, patterns recognized. But consciousness is quieter. It is the feeling of being, the knowing that you are a self in a world full of other selves. The octopus, with its distributed nervous system, challenges our every assumption about what a thinking mind should look like. 2/3 of its neurons are in its arms, which can taste, feel, and move independently, even exploring food and tools without direct instruction from the central brain. Each arm may have a kind of local awareness, a sub-mind of its own. This is not a puppet with 8 strings, it is more like a parliament of limbs, each with its own input, yet working together under a central thread of purpose. Imagine if your hands could reach for something before your brain decided to act. Imagine if your skin could see and your body could remember, without words. This is the octopus. Its entire form is sensory and thinking at once. It is not thinking in words, but in motion, in texture, in gradients of light and temperature, in changes of color that ripple over its skin like emotion made visible. In captivity, octopuses recognize individual humans. They show preferences, watching some keepers with fascination while avoiding others. Some will jet streams of water at people they dislike. Others reach out gently to touch fingers on the glass. These are not reflexes. These are decisions, and decisions imply something more than just reaction. They suggest a subjectivity, an inner world, a presence behind the eyes. There is a story of an octopus who, after being moved to a new tank, spent the entire first night rearranging the rocks, not randomly, not chaotically. Each stone picked up, inspected, then placed carefully, methodically, until the tank resembled the old one. When the work was done, the octopus retreated to its corner and stayed there, quiet and still, as if exhaling. What does that mean? Was it comfort? Memory? A desire for control in a changed world? Or was it something simpler, a sense of rightness restored? These are the kinds of behaviors that make researchers pause. Not just because they're clever, but because they feel familiar, like something we might do, too. The philosopher Thomas Nagel once asked, "What is it like to be a bat?" The question wasn't meant to be answered. It was meant to show how little we can truly understand minds unlike our own. And if a bat is hard to imagine, then an octopus is harder still. Its body is not symmetrical. Its experience of the world is through taste, touch, suction, and shifting colors. It has no voice, no face like ours. And yet, it seems to know. Some scientists hesitate to use the word consciousness for non-humans. It is a guarded word, a crown too easily given, too easily taken away. But others argue that the octopus earns it, not because it mimics us, but because it clearly does not and yet still meets us, somehow, in the space between action and intention. Octopuses dream, or at least, they seem to. In sleep, their bodies twitch, and their skin pulses through a kaleidoscope of patterns, as if reliving moments, hunting phantom prey, or exploring imagined terrain. Their eyes move beneath closed lids. Their arms shift gently. It is not mere rest. It is something deeper. To dream is to re-enter your own mind, to travel the corridors of memory and feeling. And in the octopus, That dream plays across the canvas of its own body, a movie made of muscle and pigment and impulse. They learn quickly, and they forget slowly. In experiments, they remember mazes, identify symbols, and learn by watching others. When presented with a problem, they stop, observe, try, fail, try again. The learning curve is not robotic. It's flexible, responsive. There is frustration, exploration, success. These are not the mechanics of instinct. These are the movements of a mind at work. But is it a mind aware of itself? No one knows. We cannot ask them. We cannot share words, or metaphors, or dreams. But perhaps we can listen in other ways to the way they move, the way they react, the way they reach out with cautious curiosity and choose not just how to act, but when to act. If we accept the possibility of octopus consciousness, we are forced to expand our definition of what it means to be aware. Consciousness, then, would not be a human thing or even a mammal thing. It would be a pattern of complexity, emerging wherever there is sensation, memory, and the space between stimulus and choice. It could exist in silence, in solitude, in a body shaped like no other. And maybe that is what makes the octopus so unsettling and so beautiful. It is a mirror that reflects none of our features, but many of our mysteries. It feels without a face. It chooses without a voice. It learns without teaching. And when it meets us, through the glass of a tank or the murk of the sea, it does not look away. It watches back. And somewhere behind those alien eyes, there may be something that wonders. In the strange archives of the ocean's past, written not in ink but in the slow churn of time, the story of the octopus reads like science fiction. It is a tale of sudden change, of rapid evolution, of soft bodies rising in a hard-shelled world, and of origins that remain, to this day, shrouded in both wonder and mystery. Among all the creatures that have swum through the currents of Earth's long history, the octopus stands out not only for what it is, but for how it got here. And for some, that journey is so improbable, it has sparked a question both playful and profound. What if the octopus didn't come from here at all? This idea, though fringed with speculation, lives at the edge of scientific conversation, in a place where curiosity meets cosmic possibility. It is called the alien hypothesis, an offshoot of a broader theory known as panspermia. In simple terms, panspermia suggests that life, or the building blocks of it, may not have originated on Earth, but arrived from space, hitching rides on comets, meteorites, or microscopic travelers across the void. Most scientists approach this idea with caution, if not skepticism. But the octopus, with its peculiar biology, has become an irresistible candidate for those inclined to wonder. Its genes, for one, are startling. The octopus genome is enormous, around 33,000 protein-coding genes, more than humans, and structured in ways that challenge our expectations. It contains entire families of genes that appear to have expanded rapidly, seemingly overnight in evolutionary terms, giving rise to innovations in neural development, camouflage, and cellular communication. Even more curious is their talent for RNA editing. Unlike most animals, which use their DNA as a fixed script, octopuses routinely rewrite the messages their genes send out, tailoring their biology in real time to meet the needs of their environment. This is not simple adaptation. It is dynamic reprogramming. It's as if the octopus carries a genetic keyboard and knows exactly which keys to press. Such complexity has led some to suggest that the leap from mollusk ancestor to modern octopus was too swift, too strange, too untraceable by the usual fossil records. In a 2018 paper, a group of scientists even proposed that octopus eggs could have arrived on Earth frozen inside comet-borne ice, a speculative idea, unproven and largely unendorsed, but one that continues to flicker like bioluminescence at the edge of imagination. Still, the actual story of octopus evolution is no less astonishing. The oldest known relatives of today's octopuses date back over 300 million years, when their ancestors shared the oceans with trilobites and armored fish. Back then, they were shelled creatures, like modern nautiluses. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The lineage split, and one path began to shed its armor, becoming softer, faster, smarter. While the Earth's predators grew teeth and claws, these early cephalopods chose a different strategy: fluidity. They abandoned the protection of a shell for the power of shape. This was not without cost. Vulnerability meant risk, but it also meant freedom. Freedom to move through cracks in coral, to vanish in a puff of ink, to slip past danger with nothing more than cleverness and quicksilver skin. Over time, their brains expanded. Their eyes, evolved entirely separate from ours, converged on a similar solution. The camera-like design, with lenses and retinas, pupils that dilate and track, a vision tuned to polarized light and subtle motion. Through extinction events and planetary upheavals, the octopus endured, not by strength, by adaptation. Some grew small and fast, darting through reefs in bursts of color. Others grew massive, ghosting through the deep silence, their arms stretching longer than a car. Some learned to mimic other species, to impersonate venomous fish, to fold themselves into convincing flounders or lionfish, to flash warning colors they did not biologically possess. Like actors in a theater of survival, they did not evolve to dominate their world, but to remain just beyond its grasp. This evolutionary tale is not linear. It is a tree with many broken branches, a history woven with mystery. Cephalopod fossils are rare, especially for soft-bodied creatures like octopuses, which do not leave behind bones or shells. But molecular evidence, drawn from the study of genes and proteins, tells us they diverged early and then exploded into diversity. There are now more than 300 known species, each one a strange poem of evolution, each one bearing the marks of deep time. So when people say octopuses are alien, they are not always speaking metaphorically, and yet even without space-bound origins, they remain alien in the truest sense of the word, radically other. Their intelligence is not mammalian. Their nervous systems are not centralized. Their blood is blue, their hearts are 3, their skin can see, and their bodies think with their arms. Every detail defies what we consider normal, yet all of it evolved here, on the same earth we walk. Perhaps that is the most profound idea of all. Not that the octopus came from the stars, but that it didn't. That such strangeness, such beauty, such mystery can emerge from the same soil and sea that gave rise to us. It reminds us that life does not need to resemble us to be wondrous, that evolution does not move toward a single peak, but blooms outward in countless directions, and that the universe, in all its vastness, may be less about finding others like us, and more about learning to recognize the intelligence that already surrounds us, hidden beneath the waves, breathing quietly in the dark.